So in this class we are going to cover all these topics. Okay. So first let me write a sample JavaScript. Okay. So before writing it, always make sure that you create a package. So you can create com.java examples. So let me create a new class. To create a new class, just select the package, right click on it, go to new and select the class. Just enter the name and just finish it. Okay. So we already know that the Java file is going to be executed from the main method. Let's say it has n number of methods, but the execution will start from the main method. Okay. So I request everyone to be mute. If you have any questions, yeah, please unmute and ask me. So to print something on the console, system.out.println. Write something here. Hello world. Okay. So remember, you no need to type complete thing on the script. Okay. Just type main and then do control space. Okay. When you do control space, it will show you what are the operations you can perform on it. Okay. And select the main method. So these are Eclipse shortcuts you can note down in somewhere. Okay. And again, if you see for the system.out.println, I just type this out and then do control space. It's going to give the complete statement. So that's how writing the code in Eclipse is so easy. So if I run this one, to run this one, right click on the class, select as run as and Java application. Okay, so we are able to execute our first script. If you see here, the first statement should be always package. If you have created something on a package, the first statement should be always on a package. And so this is public class hello world and it's a public static void main and we are printing something here. Okay, so you might be wonder what is this public. Okay, so class is nothing but, so just to represent this is a class, we have a keyword. Okay, this is a keyword and public is a keyword, package is a keyword. Okay, all these are keywords. Keywords are nothing but the system defined things are already, I mean, those are system defined things which are already predefined in the Java. Okay, so all these are keywords and you can able to observe these keywords in a different color, right? So you can see package in red color, all these are in some different maroon color, right? All these things are, yes. Let's create another example. So in this example we are going to create two classes. One is student details and other one is get student details. We'll write it later. So get student details is to get the student details. So in the student details, let's simply make it a student. No need. details is not, just make it student, right? Int, what you will be having, you will be having a, so we know each class will be, or each object will be having certain properties and behaviors, right? So when it comes to student, he will be having a name, okay, and he will be having an ID. So what is this ID? It's a integer ID. Don't define anything now, we'll define it later. If you want, you can define it with 0. So what else you'll be having? Int class ID, okay, a class number, first standard or second standard or something, okay. Let's say define with 0 right now. So those are enough. And public void print details, okay, I can write sys out. That's fine. So if you see here, this is a string, okay. String is nothing but a set of characters. To represent the set of characters, you have to keep it in double quotes, and I have added a plus symbol, and then I have mentioned the variable name, okay. So it's nothing but I'm combining these two things together as a string and printing it. And this is also same thing, okay. This is also same thing. So when you combine a string with some number or some string again, it will be converted as complete string, and it will be given to the sysout, and it will be printing it. So this is a variable definition, variable declaration and initialization together, okay. If you see here, this is the variable name, okay, and what type of variable it is. It's a string or integer or a float, or what kind of variable it is, okay. It's a string variable that we are defining here. And what value it is containing? It is containing an empty value, an empty string, okay. Now it comes to here. So variable name is ID. What type of variable it is? It's a integer variable. So integer represents numeric numbers, okay. It's a 0, its value is 0. And coming to class number, what type of variable it is, okay. It's a class number is a variable, and when it comes to the type, it's a integer, and its value is 0, okay. And public is a keyword, is nothing but it lets the, it lets you tell what scope it is having, okay. We know that this is a method, this is a method name. Void is nothing but what this method is going to return, okay. So void says this method is not going to return anything, okay. It's a empty return type. And public is a keyword which represents the scope of this method, okay. Who can access this method, so such kind of things it will tell, okay. We'll see, in detail about public. It comes, this is also called access modifiers. These are also called access modifiers. We'll be seeing in detail after some time, okay. We have a topic also, access modifiers, okay. When we also having introduction to variables and data types, okay. Just introduction, we'll be having a separate class for variables and data types, because there are so many data types, okay. So we'll be dealing with in a later module. Right now you just remember this is the variable declaration and initialization, and this is a method, and when it elaborate, this is the method name, and this is the method return type, and this is the scope of that method. So who and all can access this method, who can see this method. So till now it's a simple class. We have defined a student. Now come to another class, that is get student details. We have to create it. Right click on a package, select new, and then select class. Right, get student details. And we know the starting point of a method, starting point of a class is main method. Main method. In our previous chapter, we already covered that to access anything in a class, if you want to access anything in a class, first you need to create an object for that class, right? So I want to access the methods and variables which are inside the student class. Okay. So first I have to create an object for the student class. Student stu, and you have to give some name. Okay. This is called reference variable. To If you want to initialize the object to a class, you have to define with new class name. And you can call student dot print details, the method name, and just print it, and then just run this class. You cannot run this class. Let's say you cannot run this student class. Anybody can give the reason. You cannot run the student class. Does anyone has any reason? We know that starting point of a class is a main method, right? Okay. Did you find main method here? No. So you cannot run this class alone. Okay. It's just a class which has certain properties and behaviors. That's it. And to get the information from the student, you have to create an object for that student class and invoke with the dot method name. I'm running this class get student details and see what is the details. It says name is nothing, id is 0, class number is 0, because you have not assigned any proper values to these three variables. That's the reason you are getting these values. So let's first initialize some values to those variables. Okay, so to access again the variables of student, you need to access to the object student dot id. So let's say id equal to 10, student dot name, let's Sudhir, for example. Student dot class number, let's say 10th class. Okay, now let's print again. Yeah, you can able to see it, right? In the same way, let's make it as student. In the same way, you can create n number of objects to a class. So yesterday we discussed that there is a blueprint for a car, and using that blueprint you can create n number of cars, right? Once the design is ready, you can create n number of objects. Okay, in the same way, once a class is defined, you can create n number of classes. Okay, just change these values. Now again print the details. Now you can see that there are different values are going to be printed for different objects. Okay, now you can see name Sudhi ID. Okay, and name Kumar 1111. Okay, let's say if I changing something here doesn't change in the other object. I'm changing ID is 12 in student object, does not going to reflect in other object. Okay, ID is 12 and class number is 10. It's Kumar 1111. Okay, now you can understand that. Okay, every object is different and every object has its own data and behaviors. Okay, let me make it more elaborate. Let's say this is a memory. Okay, so every object will be created in the memory. Okay, remember that. So this is object 1 and this is object 2, for example. So this object is referenced by student, this object is referenced by student 2. Okay, and it has ID equal to 11 now and name equal to some Sudhi and class number equal to some 11. Okay, and it has class number is 12, it is name as Kumar and class number as 12, right? So if you see here in the memory, each object has its own memory allocation. Each object gets its own memory. Okay, there the object will be stored. Okay, so this memory we can also call it as heap memory. Okay, so there are chances that you will be hearing what is heap memory. So what things will be stored in the heap memory, maybe in some interview questions. Heap memory. Okay, so this is called heap memory. So we don't say it is a RAM. Okay, so in Java we call it as heap memory. So in the heap memory objects will be stored and each object will get its own space to store it. Okay, and these objects will be referenced by the students. Let's say if you don't have, let's say if you create just like this. Okay, now also a student object will be created but nobody is going to reference it, right? We just created the new student object, but how do you refer it? Okay, how can you able to you know give some values to those variables? Okay, so it just created but you don't have any reference to access that object. Okay, that's the reason once you create an object you should give a reference to that object. So this is the reference variable where these variables will be stored, where these reference variables will be stored. Either it's a reference variable or it's a normal variable. These variables are stored in the stack memory. Stack memory. Okay, so there are sometimes you will be getting stack memory exception and heap memory exception when you don't have sufficient heap memory or stack memory. Okay, so you need to remember this one. Variables will be stored in the stack memory, objects will be stored in the heap memory. Now let's come to our thing. So we wrote a hello world script, and we also defined variable, writing a class with variables and methods and accessing them within the class. Okay, introduction to variables and data types, and this is also done. Let me show you some of the keywords. So keywords are predefined things. Okay, so let's say in our session we have seen public, right, as a keyword, and then what else we have seen? Integer we have seen, and import we have seen, and package, there will be a package if you can see it. Yeah, package we have seen it, new we have seen it, class we have seen. Okay, public, void also we have seen, right? Void, somewhere it will be. Okay, it's not mentioned, but void also is a keyword. Void is also a keyword. Yeah, you can see here void. Okay, so apart of the things, we are having many other keywords. Just a second. These are the keywords, and when it comes to identifiers, yeah. So how you are, identifying the student? Okay, how you are identifying this value 12? Okay, how you are identifying this name as Sudhir? Okay, so you are identifying with some name, right? You are giving with some name, or you are identifying with some identifier, right? So we can also call these things are identifiers. Okay, of course this is a reference variable. Let's say, of course, this is a student is a reference variable, and it's a variable name, id, class number, but these are also called as identifiers. Okay, whenever you are identifying something, okay, with the help of some other identifier, that is called identifier. That could be a variable or reference variable, or that could be an array variable, or whatever it could be. When you are identifying something, so that is called identifier. Okay, to define the identifiers, Java has certain rules. Okay, you have to identify the identifier, you have to write the identifier with some certain rules. Okay, what are those rules? Okay, first thing is that you should not start the identifier with the number. You can see here, syntax error on token 1, delete this token. Okay, so you understand that you cannot use numbers to write the identifier, the first letter. Okay, once you write something, you can keep you can keep the numbers, that's fine. Okay, so as you change the variable name here, you also required to change wherever it is used. Okay, so let's change it back. And there are certain other rules that you should not start with the special character, something like this. Okay, at, but you can start with dollar or underscore. You can see there is no error. Okay, this error because we have changed the variable name here, so it says this name is not available. You have to change it back like this. Okay, so don't focus on this side, just focus on this side. Okay, so we can start with the dollar or underscore, we can start with a normal letter. Okay, but we should not start with the numbers, we should not start with the special characters, right? So you understood. And one more important point is that you should not use the keywords as an identifier. Okay, we know there are certain keywords which already Java defined. Okay, you should not use those keywords as a identifier. Let's say one of the keyword is public. Let me write like this, public. Now you can see it says syntax around token public invalid variable declaration. Okay, just remove this one. Okay, let's say, let's give What are the other keywords? Void. Now you can see. Okay, it doesn't accept. It doesn't have the variable doesn't accept the keywords. Okay. So let's see identifiers. Okay. So identifier must start with a letter, a dollar, or a connecting character, that is underscore. Identifier cannot start with a number. After the first character, identifiers can contain any combination of letters, currency characters, and connecting characters or numbers. Okay, you can have after starting a proper letter or a character, you can start with an different other characters, something like this. All these are valid, right? That's what it's saying. And identifiers in Java are case sensitive. Okay, there's one point we missed it. Let me help you. What is that? Let's say I'm using name as a identifier name. Okay, but I'm referring it as capital N. Okay, so name cannot be resolved to a variable. It says name is not defined. Okay, you have to use, if you define in a small letters, you have to use in a small letters. Let's say if you define with this like this, NAME, capital N AME, so it's fine now, right? So variables are these identifiers are in case sensitive. So make sure whatever you use, the same only you will be using it. Let's do some examples. So, so we are going to cover now access modifiers. Okay, access modifiers are nothing but which can be applied. Access modifiers can be applied to a class, method, and variable. Okay, and these access modifiers will has the ability to change its meaning, to change its scope. Okay, so access modifiers can be applied to class, a method, also a variable. Okay, and it has the ability to change its meaning or to change its scope or to change its accessibility. Okay, let's say what are the access modifiers are available in Java, and which access modifier can be applied to where. Okay, just now we told access modifiers can be applied to class and method and variables. Okay, but there are certain access modifiers, so we need to know which can be applied to what. Okay, so there are some access modifier which can only be applied to the class but not to the variables and methods. There are some access modifier which can only be applied to the methods but not to the variables. Okay, there are some combination is there, so that was already presented. You just need to understand it. Okay, so there are many access modifiers, but I recommend you to only focus on public, private, and default, if possible protected. Okay, what are those? Public, private, protected, default. Okay, so if you can understand other things, that's well and good, but I recommend you to understand these four, and moreover at least these two. Okay, these two are important. You will be using these two, not other things. You will be only using these two things most of the times, but not the other things. But anyway, whatever you can understand, you can understand it. Okay, so as I said, modifiers can be applied to variables and methods, and there is a class. Okay, it's a class. Okay, so but it was Okay, let's see about class. What are the modifiers you can apply to a class? So to a class you can apply public, default, final. This is the final, abstract, and strict FP. Okay, so right now I'm going to deal only these two things. Okay, other things I will be deal later whenever it comes into the picture. Okay, so when you say public to a class, let's say you have seen a public right here. When you see a public to a class, so that means a class can be accessed from anywhere in the entire application. Okay, in a application you will be having many packages, right? Many packages, and there will be many classes. Okay, so from anywhere else you can able to access this public class. So when you don't mention anything to a class, okay, so the access modifier for the class will become a default. If you don't mention anything, it will becomes default. When a default access modifier is specified to a class, that can only be accessed within the package. So class can be accessed only from within the same package. Class outside the package in which the class is defined cannot access this class. Okay, for example, if you see, I'm accessing the student from the get student details class. Okay, if you see, these two are in the same package. Okay, as long as these two are in the same package, it's not a problem. If I move this package to some other package, for example, let's say it's a default package. Okay, now you can see it cannot access the student. Okay, because it is defined as a default one. If I change it to public, so it will be accessed. So ID is not visible. Correct. The class can be, now again you have to define all these as public. Okay, so as we said, modifiers can be applied to methods and variables class. So you have to define public to other variables also, the variables inside that class also. Now you can see it's, so even though it's in different package, you can able to access the student class and you can able to access the student variables such as id, name, class number. Okay, but you have to make sure, as you are in a different package, you have to make sure this particular particular class and the variables should have the public modifier. Okay, if you change it to default, what is the default behavior? So default behavior is that the class or variables or methods which are in the same package, you can access it. If you are outside the package, you cannot access them, right? If you are outside the package, the get student details is outside the package, so you cannot access all those things. So you have to change it to public. Okay, when it comes to private, there is one more thing. When it comes to private, now we have seen public, where and all you can apply. Public can be applied to a class, a variable, and also method. You can see here. Okay, let's remove this as a public. Now you can see, it cannot access the student details because you are outside the package. So default behavior is that within the same package it is allowed. Okay, so you have to specify public. So, and we'll talk about this private and protected more in our next class. Okay, so for today I'm winding up.